Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, welcome back to the Prodcast. Season 2, Episode 29, broadcasting this podcast in the time of COVID-19. Strange days, folks. Strange days. A good friend of mine the other day posted something on her Facebook page. She said something really profound. We're not all in the same boat. You'll hear people go like, oh man, it's COVID-19, coronavirus. We're all in the same boat. We're not all in the same boat. We may all be in the same storm, but some of us are in dinghies. Some of us are in luxury boats. Some of us are in tugboats, rowboats, paddle boats, no boat, floating. And so those people out there floating, man, they're struggling. And if you're one of those people that's in a little bit of a better position, please treat those other people with kindness. And if you have the ability, and every little bit counts, feel free to donate to local community charities that reinvest and distribute within your own community. Because there's people out there that are hurting and they're struggling, and I just think that needs to be said. COVID-19, it's crazy. Here's something else that's crazy, a little ironic, don't you think, that next week is Cinco de Mayo. You know, everyone's like always like, oh my gosh, well, Cinco de Mayo, like it's not really like a Mexican holiday. It's not like this Americanized. It's kind of like what the United States has done to St. Patrick's Day. It's kind of the same thing as with Cinco de Mayo. We've done Cinco de Mayo. But, you know, everyone likes a good excuse to party. Cinco de Mayo next week falls on Taco Tuesday for the first time in like a long time. And we can't even go out and celebrate because we are plagued with a virus named after a Mexican beer. Get your carry-out orders and social distance and have a couple of beers at home and a couple tacos with your family. That's the silver lining. The good news is that some of the stay-at-home orders are being lifted, and the economy is slowly starting to reopen, both nationally and, if you're like us, being broadcast from Two Ticks and the Dog Productions, located above Dave Grohl Alley in downtown Warren, Ohio. If you're like us in Ohio, they're starting to release some new guidelines for reopening. And so keep in mind, you want to wear your face mask. You want to wash your hands. You want to clean and sanitize your business. You want to limit capacity inside your business. And you want to keep up those social distancing guidelines. Next week, we look to start recording some new shows and with some new guests. And so we'll be rearranging our studio to keep those guidelines 6 feet plus in place. So we're fortunate to be able to do that, and we're excited to bring those episodes to you. And of course, as the limitations start to become lifted in Ohio and things hopefully slowly start to get back to normal, or whatever the new normal will be, we'll be able to start going out again. Pay attention to the news, look at the websites, because I don't think we really can plan further out than 7 to 10 days in advance. We don't know what's going to happen. So please be patient. Our next guest, Derrick McDowell, who is the founder of the Youngstown Flea and the coordinator for the Youngstown Foundation Community Amphitheater, is going to tell you about all the cool shows and all the cool things that he does. If you are out there and getting ready to go to the Youngstown Flea or the Youngstown Foundation Community Amphitheater, and you're coming from Austintown or Howland or Niles or Cortland or Hermitage, PA, and you want to arrive in style, make sure you slide through Coates Car Care, the car washes that are automated, that use 100% made in the USA Simonized products, and now you don't even have to get out of your car. You don't have to give the attendant money. If you're an Ultimate Wash Club member, you can just pull up, they'll scan the barcode, and you're good to go. Or in the next few weeks, they're going to be rolling out an app that you can download from the App Store, pay for your car wash from the app, show them your phone, they'll scan the barcode that's on your phone, and you won't even have to roll the window down. We got to adapt. We got to evolve, until we can get in the clear from COVID-19. And so kudos to Coates, our sponsor of Season 2, for adapting and evolving. I want you guys to subscribe, and then I want you to visit theprodcast.net and sign up for our giveaways. Last week, we gave away a gift card to Starbucks. We just sent it out in the mail. A friend of ours and a listener received it, and he sent me a message and thanked us for it. And so, Mike, we hope you enjoyed your coffee. But we're going to start to be able to give away some free car washes from Coates Car Care. So you're going to want to sign up for their app when it comes available. We'll let you know when. You're going to want to subscribe to the podcast on all major podcasting platforms, Spotify, iTunes, etc. Check our website at theprodcast.net and then sign up. It's as easy as that. We will be announcing the giveaways on our Facebook page, so make sure you like our page and be on the lookout for our live videos where we'll be giving away, old school style, we're drawing it out of the hat. We'll be giving away car washes to our listeners. Without further ado, as my friend Brandon Giovanni likes to say, let's get electrified.
We could begin, like, we can broaden this thing out. It's like, start with race. Like, is he black?
Is he black?
Is playing Guess Who?
Yeah.
Is he...
Playing some Guess Who.
Well, let me ask you, though. Do you practice an organized religion?
I am a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ, man. I love it.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
WWJCD. What would Jesus Christ do?
Right.
Or we could go with the WWW, like the wall with Wu-Tang and Warren.
You love
sitting
that.
right next to it.
That's one of the first things you said when you walked out.
Yeah.
So it's for new listeners. Hopefully we got some new listeners with this episode. We have a poster. I'm sorry, not a poster. A oil painting on canvas, and I'm not sure the size of it. But if you're on the website, you can see it. It's in all our pictures from season 1 and up until this point to season 2. It's Hong Kong Phooey Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
So we got a Hanna-Barbera mix in with Wu-Tang. And I was telling our guest, because we've been sitting here talking for like a half hour, probably hit the record button early. But I said, I want to send this painting, and this is a Barry Berkey original with a lot of these other ones. I want to send this painting to RZA and just have him take a picture of it and use that picture on Instagram. Like, you can have the painting. Please, This is our gift to you. Just take a picture next to the painting and say, thanks, Barry Berkey, or whatever it is.
I mean, we could park there, too, and ask, does this current generation understand the Wu and its impact on society and our culture?
Do you think they do?
I don't know if they do. I mean, I try to have conversations with my kids. I mean, and it's just like, who?
You should.
I asked my kids the other day, and I'm like, you guys know who Nelly is? And they were like, who?
How old are your kids, though?
I got an 18, almost 19-year-old, and all the way down to a 10-year-old. So I just thought, like, with all the
18-year-old probably.
You should have just told him Jimmy, Coco, what?
Yeah, I just thought with all the hits.
Right.
Because they go off in my head at any time. Yeah, they go off in my head at any given time.
He had that one single with the chick from Destiny's Child, Kelly from Destiny.
Kelly Rowland.
You don't know what you do to.
Oh, shit.
You actually went into it, man.
Yeah, go, man.
I saw him at Rover Fest in Cleveland at Voinovich Park.
I'm trying to remember, though, because you and I had a conversation somehow, either on Facebook or social media or something prior to last season. Season 1, we had Jimmy Masacci on, and his sister actually connected us.
Yeah.
But we actually had a conversation before. I've been an admirer of yours from afar.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Legit for a couple of years. And so when she made that connection, and thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, oh yeah, this will be great because there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
There is.
Primarily, a couple of things.
I am capable of talking nonsense, too, which was what I believe, a little bit of what I began with. I'm talking about the Rover Fest. So
well, see, and I think
tag it as
I think that's what's funny about this, too, is like we can go all over the place. We don't necessarily have to be centered on the fact that you are the founder of the Youngstown Flea, now in its 3rd.
This will be season 5.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so okay.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm behind the times.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So 5th year, and you also are the community. Give me the title.
It's a long one, man.
Yeah,
and it's one of those titles that you could submit to the hood and ask them to go back and see what they can do with it. Because somehow in the hood you wind up with nicknames. Just like if you if you break something, your new name is like Jimmy Bones in the hood. You know what I mean? Like it comes quick. But with this title for my work, it's a difficult one. It's Community Engagement and Inclusion Coordinator.
Holy smoke.
For the Youngstown Foundation Amphitheater. So I don't know what we can do with that one.
Did you ever try to acronym it?
I'm not a big fan of acronyms because they sort of add another corny component to it. It's like it might spell something you can't ever live down.
Well, prodders out there, if you haven't guessed who this is already, we want to give a big podcast welcome and get electrified today.
It is time to get electrified.
Get electrified.
Yeah, that's one of Brandon's. I'd pump it in there because he made me contractually say it every time we're in this thing. Welcome to the show, Mr. Derrick McDowell.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, that's the longest lead up we've ever had.
But that was electrifying.
Yeah, it was electrifying.
We learned about Catholics. We learned about Tatas. We learned about... What did we learn before this?
And we're out. Show's over. Thanks for joining us today.
That's why I said we could have parked at the first couple of issues, man. You taking a nap. I'm not a nap guy, man, so I'm not sure how that feels. But if you really were about to take a nap, dude,
especially early in the morning like that.
Yeah. It was just one of those mornings. Let me just tell you this. It's just one of those mornings. My daughter was getting on my nerves. She just doesn't want to go to daycare. I can barely breathe out of my left nostril. And I'm winded, and it's just one of those moments where, as a small business owner or somebody that can make their own hours, it just kind of felt nice to maybe just
lazy. I'm taking a lazy day.
See, my man, I always look up the gym. My man always says
erroneously.
Listen, you just got to go to work. Like I didn't want to waste the whole day.
See, now this is the topic I mentioned before we went on air, the one that will tank your career, right? Because I will talk about napping, and somebody will go, well, for my mental health, I have to nap.
Right.
And for you to make fun of it and take it lightly, and I'm like, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
I just grew up with guys named Killer Mike, and they don't nap.
Right.
My wife's not a napper. She's like, when she's up, she's up. I'm a napper. But
I'm not.
I'm normally like
actually, they make me. If I do,
makes you more tired.
It makes me groggy and worse.
Yeah,
I think the top 10% of the people that have the most money out there, I think their average sleep is between 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah,
they sleep more than 6 hours, you're wasting time. But
some people are so rich. Some people are so rich, all they have is money.
That's it.
I like that.
That's a Bob Marley. I'm bringing it back to the Wailers because you were talking about. Yeah. So
you look like you knew you were saying that to be sarcastic, though.
Oh,
you
had
that look on your face like some people are so rich, all they have is money. So
I was kind of because I don't.
He wasn't said in
Jim
the spirit that Bob Marley said it.
Jim's got a new presence about him. He talks a lot about financial and being rich because he lives in a world class
community.
Oh
shit!
He moved to a world-class community.
No,
things are different for him.
Moving on now.
Yeah, right. Oh my God, I've heard that song about 50 times.
To living in a development. I mean, he's a development.
Living on the street. I wasn't living on the street.
Living off of a street.
Yeah, I still live on a street.
Oh yeah, you do.
I lived on a busy street.
You got a neighborhood association now?
No, but I think they're gonna. I'm gonna start one.
See what I'm saying? He's like,
we need some more lights around and a little play park for the kids.
Only 7 bushes allowed per one.
Brandon actually lived in this world class community before I did.
That's true.
But I actually was talking about this morning with a friend of mine, that the house that we moved to, and it's semi-recently, has made my marriage better because we expanded the space. We've not quite doubled the space, but
You're going to have to bring this one on home, or what you talking about.
Well, and I'll tell you.
I'm thinking like more space means I don't have to be near you, honey.
Well, there's some, it's now I can escape a little more. And really the space that I'm talking about is bathroom space.
Right.
We had 1 bathroom, 3 people. It's my wife and my son, and he's pretty independent, so he gets himself ready in the morning. He's 7 now, but even over the past couple of years. And we would be, when she goes to work at the same time that we're getting him ready to go to school, at the same time that I'm getting ready to go to work, 1 bathroom. We had a bathroom in the basement, but it was just, this bathroom upstairs was very small, and it was, there was like congestion always in the hallway, and it led to like arguments.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I could, I don't have a statistic to say it, but we've probably reduced 60 to 70% of our arguments just by being in this house. I love my wife more, which was hard to think that I could do. But
there's a couple of topics that we can't broach in my home. Like I tell my wife, there's just things that we're not gonna do. Like you're not gonna talk to me through the bathroom door.
Right.
Now
I don't like that either.
Now some guys, it's fine, but like me, I can admit I grew up in some tough neighborhoods, but part of me is what I'd like to call like a male diva. You know what I mean? Which only means that I like what I like and I know what I don't like.
Right.
And some of those things may come off a little, diva-ish, but it's like I don't like having a conversation through the bathroom door. I tell my wife, it's fine for you to tell me that you're in there brushing your teeth for the third time today. Because I'll believe it, because I want to believe that. I don't want to believe anything else.
Oh, right.
Nothing,
Right.
So keep what you're doing.
This is a no fart zone.
Yeah, listen, we don't even use that word.
Yeah. Oh, that's
I've never done it around my wife.
Yeah.
I don't even do it. Like, guys, if you in my car, like, we don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
You could do it in your car because it's your car.
Right.
Right? Because I can't control that environment. It's your car. But when you get in my car, like, that's a topic we not broaching either, homie.
Yeah,
We're like, you can pause right there. And you can get out because it's one of these things for me that I think my wife, when we first started dating, would say the small things are the big things, right? So the moment you're too tired to shower at the end of the night and you come to bed stinky, it might seem like a small thing to you, but to her, it's a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And for me, I'm like, talking to me through the bathroom door is one of those small things that's a big thing because I don't want to have to adjust anything that's going on in there for this conversation. I want to be relaxed. The door's closed. It's closed for a reason.
The fan's on.
I don't
want to talk in a louder
voice. I even
voice.
put some music on just to let you know.
Right.
Like,
I'm in there reading and being with myself.
In myself.
I'm doing my business.
And I just brought one of those bidets, man. And I know that's not the hardest thing in the world because the environments I came from, but like it's a world game changer.
Really?
Yeah, my friend Adam Zagatti from Station Square and I were just talking about this, and he bought one and he installed it himself.
Yep, I installed it myself.
Yeah.
Man. Straight off Amazon.
You love it.
Love it. Love it. It's a game changer. I mean, again, I'm 39, man. You got to start really thinking about that stuff.
Dude, I got to get one of these now. I told him, but you're the second person now that,
I mean, it probably was $40, and it's got a hot water hookup right to my bathroom sink, so you can go whatever temperature you want to go, and most people are going to be like, what the heck's a bidet, and what are they even talking about?
Wash your butt, dude.
But Google it. You know what I mean?
Google
Here's
it.
the craziest thing. People are like, oh, those are European, or those are just for women, or blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. Anywhere else on your body, if you got some doo-doo on you, are you just taking a rag and just wiping it 4 times?
Just smear it.
But it's okay with your TV for the bunghole. But anywhere else in your body, let me put bird poops in your head. What are you doing? Just let me get 4 sheets of ultra soft real quick. All right, I'm going back out for the day.
But that actually leads to a larger issue that we have in our society, which is we think we lead in everything and can't take cues from other people.
Right.
That, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's a problem. It's like, and that might go into a heavier subject like education or our workforce or whatever. But like, I mean, these Asian people, man, they got these, it's not just this attachment, it's the whole toilet.
Right.
Yeah.
Self-cleaning and all that good stuff.
Right.
So we're just over here dabbling in bidets with like a little thing you can slap onto your toilet seat and hook to your water line. Because we don't even want to believe. Like, I've seen the comments and read the reviews when I ordered it, and it was like just the idea of it, and people were offended.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I thought, like, but when I saw the positives, because, you look at any product review, and if you see the same thing, it's right, the leg falls off. You're like, okay, 20 people said that. It's probably not an accident. The leg fell off. But if you see comments that just don't want to open their idea, their mentality around something.
Yeah.
But then the opposing positive comments are the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
And you see that 4,536 times. I'm like, the other negative comments are more based on closed-minded people who maybe don't even want to give this thing a try. And so I was like, for somebody to rave about a product that is
absolutely
game-changing, and even the health benefits around it are much better. And, septic issues that you have with overflowing the toilet paper and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, dude, it's a game changer, man. So again, could be a heavier topic when we get into the belief that we know the way forward in everything.
We better release this episode after the coronavirus because everyone's going to be going over to his house because there ain't there's no TP anywhere. Can't buy it anywhere.
Which is very interesting because I have been stockpiling toilet paper since my grandmother. My grandmother was one of those people that every time she went to the store, she just bought it, whether she needed it or not. And literally, that was part of her estate when we divided things.
Who gets all the TP?
Who gets it? And I'm like, so it started this kickoff, like maybe she was on to something. So I don't have to hoard it. My wife's been yelling at me for 10 years about, like, we have enough.
Well, I think it's cool. The larger issue, what we're talking about is the American ego.
Yeah.
What you're saying in terms, because that's totally true. Like, we're not, all right, this mentality holds true. I get into a discussion, I'm going to throw my wife under the bus again since we're talking about wives, and hopefully she won't listen to this one. She will say, I've been doing this for 40 years or whatever. Like, my big thing is I'm a big water cleanliness guy. Like, I think on a baseline across the world, everybody should be able to agree that every single human being on Earth should have clean water.
Yeah.
We are technologically advanced. There is no excuse for people not to have clean water. And there's no excuse for us in a municipality, wherever you're at, for you not to have ultra clean water that's free of pesticides and residuals and cancer-causing shit. So, I get the water reports, and they give certain allowances, certain amount of arsenic, so many parts per million of different things that are bad for you. And so I tell Renee, I have this zero water filter.
Hot dogs have allowances too. They call them rats per pound.
Right, exactly.
Which is not cool.
Yeah, rats.
I don't really want an allowance in that area.
Right.
Insect hairs and shit like that in your cereal. I mean, so I'll tell her, I go, don't drink the tap water. Pour the tap water into this zero water filter. Let's ultra filter it. Yeah. Eventually, since I'm living in a world-class community, I'm going to get a home filter so that it just filters right into the thing. Through. And she goes, I've been drinking tap water for 40 years. As if to say that because you've been doing something for so long, then that's okay. And that's just the way we've always done it.
Sure.
Which is
Yeah. And there's tons of, I think, examples of that statement. And those are things that are so embedded into our culture, though, right? And so if you compare it, like, part of, I think, what we need to do is we need to reframe words for people sometimes because of our level of intellect at this point. You know what I mean? Like, there's some people who just are being intellectually lazy. And so if we continue to frame things in ways that people don't truly get the nature of, for example, when you say culture, I like to say culture truly just means the way we do things around here. Mm-hmm. And if you frame it like that, then you can start saying, okay, well, in my home, what's the way we do things around here? Do we just put up with the quality of water that we have for 40 years? Is that just cool? Or do we recognize that, what Bloomberg spent on his campaign, though it's his own personal money, could have fixed Flint's water crisis almost 10 times over, right? And it's on his own money. He can spend it how he wants to spend it. I'm just saying the estimated cost to repair the water lines for, Flint's brown water that's coming out of their, faucets is estimated to be about $55 million, and Bloomberg spent $500 million that we know of. And so for me, when we talk about culture, you can say that applies to your home, your school, your community, right? How do we do things around here? And if we just go with what we've been doing for 40 years, then no wonder we're at where we're at. And that again, I think can lead into a million other topics. But if we don't address culture, that's what I'm trying to do when I say we don't talk through the bathroom door. I'm trying to establish the way we do things around here, where we don't pass gas and we don't even say the word fart because it's not. I'm trying to establish a culture. And I tell my sons, like, one day you're going to want to date someone and they're going to get a cue of who you are by how you speak and the actions that come from who you are. And so if I teach you as a man that it's cool to just pass gas anytime you want and where you go,
right,
to me, that's just, that's not how we do things
crude.
around here.
Yeah, it might be a little
now,
crude.
again, I'm not going to like slap wrists on it. Like when we go back to the Catholic conversation, I'm not going to do that for other people. It's just, I'm trying to set the culture of my home. And, in the work that I'm doing as well, I'm trying to set the culture for our community. And, we look at a Jay-Z and a Beyonce and we call them cultural icons. Why? Because they're the ones setting the tone for how we do things around here, right? And Jay-Z says it in a song. I make a Yankees hat more famous than a Yankee can. Mm-hmm. That's culture setting.
Right.
Like when I can wear something that makes other people want to go out and buy it for no reason, when I drink something that makes people want to drink it, that's culture.
Kim Kardashian would be the poster child of what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, how much of that do we follow, though? That's the interesting part. It's like, do we follow traditional arrogance that's told us as Americans we're better at everything and ignore the actual data that tells us we're really not? Like, what are we ranked in education globally?
Right.
But
Not
we don't
high
want to
enough.
believe that.
Right.
Like, we don't want to take that because and I've been doing a lot of research on why facts no longer matter. And, a lot of the data tells you it's just that once you form an opinion, opinions are sticky.
Yeah.
And we just like to hold on to them. And unless you're a type of person who's willing to give up opinions when new information's presented to you, then it's already...
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, it's stuck.
Yeah.
You could have all A's all your life, hit one grade with one teacher, get an F, and they say you're stupid, and that's stuck.
Yep.
And your parents can show you your report card since you were in kindergarten and be like, you've gotten all A's your entire life. You bombed one test, one teacher that maybe didn't, carefully word things to you. And that's what your perception of yourself becomes at this point is you're stupid.
Well, especially if that person's an influencer in that kid's
Absolutely.
life, They're
Absolutely.
looking up to him and all of a sudden they're saying, well, you're not smart.
Yeah. So, multiply that by our culture and ask, what have we been saying about our communities for how long?
Right.
Well, speaking about the microcosm of, because we were talking earlier about local politics, and we talked about Bloomberg for a second, but changing the culture. I mean, here's my segue back to you, because I want to talk about a couple of these things to let, probably about 60% of our listeners are from Northeast Ohio, but the other 40% are from 42 other states or 41 other states.
That's awesome.
And I want to say
7 countries?
No, we're like 14 countries now.
I haven't checked in about that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
So they're going to love our American society conversation. They're like, wow, bidets, you guys were just getting on that, huh?
slow learners.
Civilized you say you are.
But what's cool is that you are changing the perception of Youngstown and the community, specifically your community, where you've created the Youngstown Flea. And I want to kind of talk about the idea of that and where that came from. But I want to interject this because I don't know if you will, and I think it's important for the listeners to understand that. And I'm curious too. I'm curious because I like stories where the beginning chapters, like our very first or one of our first episodes with Leo Connolly. This was a guy who was a criminal, who was an alcohol abuser. He was, and that's not going to be his final chapter.
Right.
And so your chapter in and of itself, you had a lot of, and I don't want to bring up painful things for you, obviously, but
I share
you had
openly.
You had a lot of, and you talked to, Derrick is one of the few guys. This is our only guest so far that's been a TEDx.
You brought that. You threw that in there.
Yeah, I got to because I thought it was cool.
You juxtaposed that against our beginning conversation where we're talking about.
Well, and you know what you said out of that whole thing, and I watched all of it, but the title in and of itself was "Caring Less Costs You More."
Yeah.
And that was such a cool statement because we build our walls up, especially as male. we talk about male culture a little bit. We build our walls up to protect ourselves emotionally because we don't want to show, emotion. We don't want to cry. We don't want to do X, Y, Z. And you had a brother who was, and I don't know all the details, but you had a brother who
he was
killed?
murdered in Youngstown in 95. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, turmoil in the inner cities, perpetrated by a lot of gang activity. You had a lot of the inner city school closures. And, I look at my mom's generation. She went to South High School in Youngstown on Market Street. That era of my mom's generation, and probably even before that, had a lot of school pride, a lot of community pride, and it was at a healthy point, right? You had healthy community rivalries, healthy athletic rivalries, but eventually it went toxic for the community, and it just became, I'm from the South Side, you're from the North Side, you're from this street, you're from this community. And that just became this unhealthy part of the community that really cost a lot of people their lives. But my brother was a casualty of that era. And, that year in 1995, there were 68 murders in the city.
Of a city of 110,000, maybe?
Well, I mean,
there's only like probably less than 90,000 now.
There's 66,000 in Youngstown.
Is that
now.
it?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, 20-something years ago.
Maybe it was 90,000.
You probably had 80, 90.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, you saw a mass exodus when you see the city school districts changing, closing schools, South closed, Rayan. East had closed for a little bit of time. Woodrow Wilson closed as a high school. It's now open as a, middle elementary school. So there was a lot of shifting, a lot of moving, a lot of people making those decisions of, what's this community's future look like and what's keeping me here. And people didn't see a lot of why they should stay. And so the people who did stay were in despair. But yeah, it's a tragic thing for me to not talk about my brother, but recognize what his, death did to our family, right? And that, we all suffer trauma, so I don't ever tell my story in a way that tries to portray it as unique in that sense, because I can talk to so many people that can tell you that they were evicted growing up, that water, lights, shut off, all that. I just spent more time thinking about how it impacted me. And, I've got a 16-year-old son that I believe, and there's no scientific data, but I look at him who he's grown up in a much safer environment, and I look at him and say, that's what I could have been. I could have been my son who doesn't know a lot of the hurts and pains and the traumas. He's such a nice kid, you know what I mean? And, and part of that, when I think about some of the survival skills that I acquired growing up in some of those tougher neighborhoods, that does kind of sort of bother me, because I'm a believer in that you should be adaptable to a lot of environments, right? I've been to corporate America and I've been to the streets.
Sure.
My kids don't know a little bit of that. But, certainly to keep them safe, I wouldn't want them in environments that are going to make me wonder if you're going to live through it just because of the zip code that you're in. But yeah, so that TEDx gave me the opportunity to be very open in a way that the work that I do didn't allow me to do. Certainly the Flea was birthed out of that same love, but the Flea didn't allow me the opportunity to get intimate with those that I wanted to show that love to. And so TEDx was a very, very challenging journey, because, it was 6 months of drafting, and I'm not typically, I'm what they call, what is that, extemporaneously speak, and so to submit a draft of your life, you go, I know it, I lived it, writing it down and letting someone critique it and tell you how to make it punch and how to make it hit, and I'm like,
and you only get so much time.
And you only get so much time.
You get a finite time.
I had to really refine the story for the parts that were, impacting to my life, but yet meat that other people could pull on, right? If you're gonna stand up there and have an idea worth sharing, the one that I wanted to share was that everything I tried, which was, like you said, to not care, just cost me more. It really did. It cost me so much, and that's probably a catalyst to why you even know who I am today.
Well, that was my question. You kind of flipped the script on that, right?
Very aggressively.
Yeah.
Which is why I said I don't nap.
Yeah, right.
Just picking on Brandon.
Well,
it's like I felt like I don't have time.
Right.
I don't have time to. I probably hit this around 32. When I was 32, I really started saying to myself, I'm in corporate America. I don't know my own community. I don't know a lot about myself because I've sacrificed so much of who I am for a societal standard of providing for a family, gave up every hope and dream that I had because, it wasn't a reality. Surviving, it's tough to start thinking about, when you're running for your life, imagine what's that Harrison Ford movie, the Fugitive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure in that movie he didn't stop to be like, what should I have for lunch later?
Right.
He's on the run, So when you're in these inner city tough neighborhoods, it's like when people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're more like, I'm just trying to live and get my lights turned back on and find a stable home. And so by the time you're an adult and people are looking at you like you should have your life together by now, and I'm like, I didn't start thinking on this till last week. Mm-hmm. Really, I didn't think about college till the week before high school graduation. I didn't think about it at all, and so, I just went really hard into self-discovery. I felt like if I couldn't, I couldn't get to know my own community if I didn't know myself. And the interesting part of it is as I sat one day, literally having this conversation about who I was, I literally paralleled who I was and everything that I'd gone through with the city of Youngstown. And it literally almost matched, like thing for thing. Like I've been this, I have been traumatized, I have been, like abandoned and left for dead. It was just crazy. And I thought like, so has Youngstown. And then it literally clicked to me. Like this was my own personal self-discovery. And I don't say this pretentiously, but I said, oh my gosh, like I'm Youngstown.
Mm-hmm. That's a great
way
to
for the
put it.
Potters out there, I was watching a video. You were born here. You moved to Alabama.
Yeah.
What you're talking about right now, I'm Youngstown. When did this happen? When did you come back?
I came back right at my brother's murder.
Okay.
So a little bit of backstory is that, born here, I'm the youngest of four boys. My mom suffered, a little bit of domestic abuse at the hands of my father. So when I was born, she just left. She just couldn't take it anymore. My oldest brother remained here with my grandmother. She was very fond of him. And my mom, we really didn't have any family in Birmingham. And so it was a sort of a lightening the load for my mom. Rather than taking 4 kids, just take 3, get yourself settled, and we'll work it out. But that was 14 years of my life. My mom just never figured it out. She was just struggling from worst neighborhood to worst neighborhood. And, we were just in survival mode as kids. I didn't know what was going on. And then, we communicated with my oldest brother. We would come here. Ohio, Youngstown was my summer vacationing, for a while. And then that tragedy happened, and that's what brought us back. And actually what brought us back was because my grandmother could not bear the burden of living in that same home on the south side without my brother. That's all she had known. And so we came back to bring stability, not because of the tragedy only opened a doorway for us to have more stability. And it was strange to me because I thought, we've struggled in Birmingham, Alabama for this long, and the only way to make it is to move back to the community that just killed your son.
Mm-hmm. How old were you? You were 14 at the time?
Yeah. And literally, very self-aware.
How old was your son? Or how old was your brother?
My brother would have been 19, and, just graduated high school and was preparing to go into the military. He had gained some weight after high school, just kind of hanging out, thought about college, but partied it up a little bit and, didn't make weight for the first military, training or whatever, and had to drop some weight before he could go in. And, my grandmother would just tell him all the time about the people he was hanging out with at the time. And so, my brother was a great kid. We all were. But it was just the company he kept. And at that time, literally in these kind of communities, you're forced sometimes to pick sides that you don't want to be on. Do you know what I mean? Just by association, you think that I'm for this or for that because of who I'm hanging out with, when really that might have just been a childhood friend of yours, and they may have gotten themselves into some gang activity, but because you're just, friends and you're not going to maybe cut this person off because they've been a friend for a long time, Certainly, he wasn't an innocent angel, but, he wasn't in the gang. It was him literally taking a friend to a house to pick up some clothes that this friend had left at this house. And his friend went into the home, mouthed off to some of the guys in the home, and they retaliated and shot him. He came in running out of the home. My brother was sitting in his car and had no clue what was going on. And so as a witness to the incident, they just murdered him as well.
Jesus.
And so there were so many things that was a catalyst to. It was the first time I'd ever flown, right? We had to come back for the funeral. My mom couldn't afford for all of my brothers to come back. So I was the youngest. She couldn't leave me in Alabama. So I joined her for the funeral. So my other two brothers didn't even get to see my brother's funeral. That was the first time I met my dad, in the funeral car. And his first words to me were, "Who cuts your hair?" And I thought, that was the worst intro you could make as a supposed dad, Mm-hmm. And I got to the, funeral, the cemetery, and, there were, the typical people that come along, family members, friends, their condolences. They try to remind you of who they are. I used to babysit you when you were young, this and that. And it was just overwhelming to me emotionally. I literally was in my head the whole time, I know how to fix this. Shut it down. I don't want to know who you are. I don't want to hear your stories about my brother. I was actually getting a bit angry because I thought to some of the people that some of their comments were in my head, where were you when we were struggling? You're supposed to be family, and we're in Alabama just getting hit with everything. And so rather than go nasty and angry and that, I just went emotionless. And I don't know how, I don't know if the mind or whatever just was another survival mechanism. But to get through that, it was probably 7 years of just emotionlessness. I went through high school, just kind of developing new survival tactics. If I don't talk to you, you probably won't talk to me, and we won't have any problems. I don't have to fight you. You don't have to fight me. And if I get shot, it'll probably be something random. It'd have to be because I won't be involved in anything. There were people who, in my 10-year high school reunion, would come up to me and they'd go, "Hey, man, you look the same. You remember me?" And I'd go, "No. Not at all." And they would tell me, I sat right next to you every day in homeroom. And I would say, "I have no clue who you are." None, And so whatever the brain's capable of doing to survive, it did it for me. And but there came a point where I talked about in the TEDx speech that my mom had a stroke, made me feel like a horrible son because I was trying to go out and be better than my environment, be better than my family, graduate, go to college, do anything. But I had left everybody to try and do that. I wasn't coming home. I wasn't checking on her. I wasn't trying to see if she was okay.
Where'd you go to school at?
My first year back, I went to Woodrow Wilson.
No, I mean, where'd you go to college?
I went to YSU.
Okay.
And even that was a poor experience, not because of YSU, but because I wasn't educated in anything about college. It was just that mode of no one else that I know has graduated college. I want to be the first to try. My brother was murdered. My other two brothers, got themselves in a lot of trouble. And so I was just, to some degree, I had a vantage point being the baby. I could see trouble up ahead based on their lives, and I tried to divert my life from it at the expense of separating myself from everybody in my family. And it took my mom's stroke, and it took my brother. I have a brother who's 1 year older than me. I got a letter in the mail that he was, locked up for 8 years. And I'm like, I didn't even know you were in trouble. And he's asking me for money and when can I come visit? And I'm just like, what the heck? And it was like, if any moment you had to recognize that you have been absent from the planet, those were the two moments, you know what I mean? And it just hit me so hard that I had to come out of this shell. I had to come off of this island that I was on and deal with the real things that had happened in my family. And had a daughter around that time, and I wasn't a good dad because I just didn't know how to be one. I knew to work. That was it. I knew to try and be something. I didn't know to, play Barbies and, watch Lion King with her and those kind of things. And so it was interesting, man. So from about 21 to 22, somewhere in there, I hit corporate America, give 12 and a half years of my life to that. And that's when I really started processing, like, this is not what I signed up for.
Right.
This is not who I am. This is just me. I finally hit the wall where I was like, I've been trying to prove everybody else wrong instead of proving myself right. And I had to flip it, man. And I'm sorry I went way.
No, it's good.
I like where you're going with that. And me and Jim talk about this a lot. Like, Jim, you went to college and then you followed your passion, your dream right from it, correct? Now, you had a little bit of corporate America right there, but you followed right away.
I mean, no. I went into corporate America. I took a corporate job when I was in my 30s. So
Okay.
I came home and started. I worked in another production company. But yeah, right away, almost right away, about a year after college, I was like, because life is short.
Right.
I saw, you kind of talk about like having a vantage point. You saw this vantage point and you thought, my thing was, I want to roll the dice now while I'm young, and I don't have a lot of things to tie me down. And if it happens, cool. And if it doesn't, I can always go.
You can pivot
back to work at Copper Weld Steel. That was really what my mentality was. I can always go do something else. But I didn't go to the corporate America till after. But
and those aren't statements to disparage corporate America.
No.
They treated me well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I made good money, and
where I was going is like my story is kind of following what you did. Like, you did the corporate thing for a while, but then you kind of realize that, like, I'm not meant for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and you said something. You said I wanted to be the first. I wanted to make it. I wanted to go to college and stuff like that. Like myself, I didn't go to college. I went straight to a full-time job. Did that for about 10 years. But I never gave up my talent. So I always like to, when I talk to kids, like, you went to the city school, I went to the city school as well. And especially, it's getting better nowadays with trade schools are becoming more popular. But when I went to school and graduated in 2003, if you weren't going to college, you were looked at as a joke.
Yeah.
And what I consider making it is when you establish your talents and pursue them and let the haters hate and let you be great is more important than what did you do first? What did your family do? And that's what, like, if I could redo the education system, I would love to take your last year and somebody should sit you down for a week and figure out what your talents are.
Yeah.
Because by the time you're in 11th or 12th grade, what is algebra doing if your talents are not to figure out numbers or anything like that?
I just had that conversation with my son.
If you're a hairstylist and people talk to you about this is the greatest, like you really do, then that's what you need to pursue. Mm-hmm. Don't let anybody say, no, you need to go to college first. And then, like, if you have a talent there, perfect.
Yeah.
Now, the person that doesn't have the talent, try to find the talent out of them. And trade schools are important. I mean, it's just
we don't explore enough, and
we don't.
Certainly the way we've established our public education system. And my wife's a teacher, so I'm not disparaging anything in any way. It's just we know, again, tradition. You can talk about the classroom. Short of a little bit of technological advancements, looks the same in its structure for the last century, right? You've got desks in a row and a teacher up front and a board I'm supposed to look at and some books. Maybe we've removed the books and the boards are smarter supposedly, but the end game or end result has not changed. It's like we're here to graduate you, not really expose you or encourage you or help you. So when I go talk to kids now, I find a way to roundabout talk about self-awareness and identity more than a topic that they go like, well, you need to come and talk about careers and how to find one. And what I tell them is, if you want to find anything, find yourself.
Right.
Because the rest will be great, And so people, I said to one group, I said I could tell you in 3 seconds how to find your identity, and everybody's like, what, and they're like, yeah, we want to hear this, and I go, all right, cool. How many of you have a mirror? And they're like, I do, or you have access to a mirror. You got one in the bathroom at your schools. You got maybe one at home, one in the car. I said, I want you to stand in front of a mirror and say your name, because that's who you are.
Right.
And the rest you choose. Beyond that, like if you want to choose Republican, you can. If you want to choose artist, you can. But if you don't know who you are, all you have to do is stand in front of a mirror and say your name. And from there, like, I let others in society choose. And that's how all the other stuff got added in there. It's nobody else's fault. It's just that's what I believed I had to do. So I don't blame YSU for my experience. I didn't know who I was. I knew that I grew up as a visual artist. I mean, if you found me, if I wasn't playing rough and tumble or, street balling with a milk crate or whatever, I was drawing, and I'm old enough to remember those commercials where they used to run. It's like, can you draw?
Oh, yeah, right.
And it was like a turtle. And,
yeah.
Call this number and we'll send you
a test. To see if you have an aptitude. Yeah. They had them in comic books, too.
Dude,
man.
that thing
is your demo.
Man, that thing.
You could be a graphic
thing
artist
lit
for
me up, man. It sent me to the moon and back. I got that kit and I ripped it open and I seen, it was like, all you had to do was they gave you an image and you were supposed to copy it on the other side. I'm like, nothing. It's a turtle. I could do a turtle in my sleep. I've been drawing, you know what I mean? Dark-winged duck all day long, man. I could do a rabbit. I mean, I can give you more than this turtle, right. And then they mail it back to you and tell you what grade you got. Dude, I had me through the moon, but I gave that up. I remember the moments, man. I remember walking down the hallway at Cheney High School is where I graduated, and the week before graduation, I told you earlier, and somebody just was in casual conversation and was like, hey, what are you doing after this? That was the first time I thought about what I was going to do after graduation, a week before graduation, in some just random conversation in the hallway. And so, this person knew I was, good at art, and they go, well, Pittsburgh has a good art program. Like you can go 2.5 years straight through and get a degree. Why don't you just commute there? And I wound up at YSU because I didn't know what the word commute meant, and I was afraid to ask. I had no clue. I didn't know. And so rather than say, like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, no, I'll just go to YSU. And I went to YSU and, enrolled in graphic design. And it wasn't particularly, the area I wanted to get into. Again, you got to remember this is, 20 years ago, computers weren't that prevalent. Right. I didn't have one at home. I didn't know what a Mac was. I was just, Photoshop and all that stuff wasn't hitting. And I was still going to Kinko's to print stuff,
right.
For my classes. But what was frustrating about YSU was two things. One, because of my responsibility level, I had to work. So I had a work-study job and a job working midnights, to try and pay for things. And other people had the opportunity to stay in the art studio all day long. And I would have to, I only had the amount of time of class. And in the art world, when you get your creative mojo going,
right,
and you got to put it down to go to work,
yeah,
it just killed it. And the other frustration was that the prerequisites in that degree were just, like you said, Brandon, I don't want to take geology or geography or
right.
astrology or astronomy or psychology. There were small little components that piqued my interest in some of those things. But boy, it was frustrating to leave the Bliss Hall and go to the education department and sit through a class. And I'm like, I can't. So I would just leave.
I think the private schools have always done a better job of trying to prepare the kids to go to college or what their talents are and finding the schools to do the proper thing. I just see so many times in my local school, Youngstown, Warren, wherever, it's like so many times just people need to just, I don't know if I'm college material. Why? So the only thing, now you're in 12th grade, and the only thing that somebody's trying to see if you're college material or not, it's like, what do you enjoy? What are your talents? My buddy, he was a foreign exchange student, and he lives in England. How they do it is you go to 10th grade regular education. Your last 2 years, you go to a trade school. So you still do, your 12,
Yeah.
13 years with kindergarten, but your last 2 years are just automatically at a trade school. Like that is like, so many kids, I think, get so lost in their talents. I mean, how many times do you see, like, you talk about your brother being murdered, like murders still happen. Like how many times do you see kids doing that and then you hear at their funeral or this, like he could have made it doing this.
Yeah.
And it's not like a dream. Like, no, this
Yeah.
guy really did draw, or this guy really knew how to tear down an engine. Like he used to make
Yeah.
mopeds in his backyard.
And that was my brother. I mean, we were.
But no one said making mopeds is a cool thing.
Yeah.
They were just wondering if he's college material and he's getting D's in algebra. Like,
So here's one of those things, right, that's probably going to get me tanked. Here we go. When we say things like, one of the answers to the issues in our area is we need more jobs. And I'm like, no, we don't. Because I've been working for my entire life. Mm-hmm. I've never not had some kind of form of making money because I had that drive. And I'm not talking about in mass scale. I'm talking on an individual basis that if you want to work, you'll find work.
Right.
But you have to understand that we get so nostalgic about how we make money, right? And I'll give an example because I don't want to take this out of context. We do need jobs, but what I'm saying is that I went to L.A. and, I was working with the Harley Davidson shop in Austintown, and I was out there just touring some motorcycle organizations, and, I was going from one motorcycle shop to the next, and I pulled up my GPS, and it said it was like 3 miles away, but it was going to take me an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like showing the guy, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Like I could walk 3.5 miles.
Welcome to the 405, son.
And so I never saw a stoplight to get on the freeway. Like you can't just get on the on-ramp and join in traffic. There's a red light and it turns green when it's your turn. And I'm like, what the heck, I'm sitting in traffic for that hour, Once you get out of traffic, then it's 15 minutes to where you're going, right? And I thought to myself, if I was in any field, right? Let's just take the medical field in Youngstown, and we know that Northside Hospital closed. And I just choose that's where I've placed my career. That's where I want to spend my life, and that's what I love. What's the difference working in Northside Hospital in Akron or Canton or Cleveland or Newcastle or Sharon? Because there are people every day who waste an hour sitting in traffic stuck because that's their normal commute. But we will spend time kind of crying over that spilled milk that there's not a job right in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, traditionally, right, we're so used to being able to just hopscotch to wherever.
Yeah.
The average commute time in the U.S. is like 45 minutes, but we're kind of spoiled here.
We're spoiled. And again, I'm not disparaging because there are industries, there are impacted people that it's not that simple. So I'm not going to try and say, I have a friend that the Lordstown plant closing sent him to Kentucky, 7.5 hours away, because he's got so much time in with GM, it didn't make sense. My daughter happens to be in Kentucky for college at Thomas More, and I just passed the plant. And me and my wife, I'm like, I wonder if, so-and-so works there. And we came back at church, and he was talking about how he had to rent an apartment in Kentucky. And I'm like, oh, are you really at that plant? He goes, yeah. So there are real people that are really impacted. There are segments of our community that do have issues with, job attainment and retraining them for other positions. But I'm talking about the innate, intrinsic desire, restlessness that you should have to want to find out who you are. And when you do that, I'm telling you as a personal example that who I am made a way for the work that I do.
Well, I'll boil it down to one word, and we've talked about this in other episodes because we talk about education and we talk about employment, and there always is a socioeconomic or a political topic, and it comes back to one word. What is your purpose? And we don't spend enough time, and it's maybe the American ego, right? Because it's like we want to insulate ourselves too. Like this is an interesting kind of trifecta here because we're all artists, but I was never encouraged other than my grandmother And my mom would have encouraged me to do whatever. And I'm not knocking any of my family or whatever, but they want to keep you safe from incurring the pain that it may take to get to the level where you're quote unquote successful, or you're able to sustain yourself financially, sustain your family if you have one financially by being an artist. So that purpose is a huge thing that we should explore.
It is. I think you hit it on the. It's scary.
Yeah,
it's scary because the rhetoric, right? When I was growing up, it was starving artist.
Mm-hmm, right.
So if you attach those two words to it, of course your family is going to caution you against that, and even go so far as to tell you, is that even a real career? Right. Artist. What do you mean?
Right.
But I found that. Once I figured out who I was, I think Kanye's got a song, everything I'm not makes me everything I am. So sometimes it's boiling down that, like I said, I'm a diva. I know what I like and I know what I don't like. I don't like pickles on my Chick-fil-A sandwich. Don't give them to me, right? So knowing what I don't want oftentimes. And so quite honestly, when it comes to the love that I have for Youngstown, it's not even difficult for me. It might be difficult for some people to maybe from the outside looking in, or from the inside who are dealing with the issues of Youngstown, to see and feel what I feel, but it's not for me because I know who I am. Right. And I know that it's authentic. And so it's very difficult to go against who you are when you've figured it out. It's just like, hey, I'm a 6'3" black man. Like, trying to ignore that is foolish. And so when you embrace that, then you stop pretending that you're 5'10" and white. You don't have to. It's hard to do that. So when you love Youngstown, it's hard to say a disparaging thing about it. And people find that strange. They're like, where do you find your love and inspiration for Youngstown? And I'm like, I find it in the fact that Youngstown is just like me. Mm-hmm. And I want love. I want encouragement. I want to grow and change and survive my trauma just like it does.
When was that moment you became self-aware of that love for Youngstown? And then how did that spur the Youngstown Flea? Because I think the Youngstown Flea and what you do in your new position are extensions of that love.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you have that moment? You talk about the moment when you were in school and you're like, but when?
Yeah, that was the moment in my car, really. I was managing for, a corporate organization out in Cortland, I think around 2011. And I was unfortunately had suffered a divorce, and then I became more family focused because I had my two kids full time, in that divorce. And so it was another one of those shocker moments, sort of like I described with my mom's stroke and my brother's incarceration. It was, I went from being the sole provider of the family to having to be more than just that now, because my kids weren't going to have another component, which was their mother, involved in their life as much. And so then I actually was like, I have to be a dad now. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that sounds strange, but it's not innate. It was not, again, I grew up with a single mom. My mom was very hands off with 4 boys. We sort of raised ourselves, and that's, again, not a disparaging statement to her, but my mom knew her boys. She knew what we could do and what we couldn't do. She set boundaries, and she let us, have our thing. And so, in that time in 2011, when I was going through this divorce, I'm in corporate America. I'm dying to get closer to home because I'm in Cortland, driving 35, 40 minutes to work. And that was only a issue because my kids were in Youngstown and I wanted to be there for them. So it doesn't it's not counterproductive to the earlier thing I said about commuting to work. That wasn't the issue. It was never an issue at that point. I was happy to drive that far, but conditions changed where I need to be with my kids. I've got to be closer to them, picking them up from school, using my lunchtime to spend time talking to them, dropping them off at school. I didn't have to do those things with a wife in the home. And so not only that was, okay, I need to get closer to home. What is home? I don't know home. I've been so far from home so long in corporate America, I don't even know home. So I literally would start taking different routes home to get to know just the structure of Youngstown. Like, I don't even know what's down that street. I've never been down that street. I'm going to just take that way home or this way home. But that's when I said it. When I was in my car taking those little trips, trying to sort of get to know Youngstown before I left corporate America, I had parked somewhere, and that's when I had that conversation with myself about who I am and who I was compared to Youngstown, and it just hit me. And so that's that moment where you talked about, Brandon, where when you figure out who you are, it made it very difficult to stay in corporate America, man. Like, I could have managed the largest retail store, and it felt like the walls were closing in on me. Man, it was like, I can't do this anymore. I actually called it career suicide because I started like encouraging other people that had been in there longer than me who were in positions. Like, I'm the store manager and you've been a sales employee for 17 years. Like, you work for me and I've been here 12. You've been here 5 years longer than I have. Like, how I'm literally would look at people like, how long are you going to do? Is this what you told yourself you wanted to be when you grow up? Right. So I started like, trying to get everybody to jump off a cliff with me. And finally in 2012, a year later, I quit. I had, again, I went to do some consulting work with the owner of the Harley Davidson in Austintown. But he sort of rescued me from corporate America to allow me time to breathe. He was just like, you can set your salary, set your work schedule, figure out who you want to be and what you want to do. And as so long as you help me accomplish the things I want to, because he's had seen me over the years in corporate America. I had a large account with him and knew I had this entrepreneurial talent and skill set and, and wanted to kind of use that for his own benefit. So we sort of bartered. Yeah. And that allowed me time to travel and read and get exposed to so many different other things. And so as I was traveling, I saw different communities. And it was Art Basel in Miami. There's an area called Wynwood, where a real estate agent, he's since deceased, Tony Goldman, he bought up all these dilapidated properties in this community, and to revive the community, he let the arts come in. And it was this catalyst to this huge thing now. It's a 3-day arts event where galleries come in now and occupy these empty spaces. And, you got Shepard Fairey comes and paints these walls, and, all these artists come in from New York and LA. And so, but as I was walking around the towns, I was just observing some of the things that were going on. And I saw this big, huge parking lot full of food trucks and vendors. And I thought, like, what the heck is that? And I wandered off over there, and it was like I wanted it all. I just was like, I can eat every one of those food trucks, and I'll take everything on that table and this and that. But then I got back home, and it was just absent. It was like, man, I was like withdrawing, and I thought, we deserve that too. Youngstown deserves that as well. So I go on the hunt to try and look for it around here. Same way I found it there. I'm like thinking, is there anything around here? And I saw the Pittsburgh, neighborhood Flea. I saw Cleveland Flea. Didn't know a lot about them, but I thought,
you knew you liked them.
Yeah, I knew the format was there. And what I thought was, in a lot of cases, we don't recognize that when you see things in other areas or communities that you love and enjoy, 9 times out of 10, we have those same ingredients. We have them. We just, it's like you and how you see your kitchen, and your wife and how she sees your kitchen, and then how a trained chef would see your kitchen. Could be the exact same ingredients, but the meal we're serving up is going to be completely different, right? And this chef's going to come in and say, you guys could be making fine dining cuisines with the ingredients that you have. You don't even need to go to the store and get anything else. We can work with so many different entrees. And so I saw Youngstown like that. I said, we have so many amenities, so many things that we can really, really pull on. And a lot of people just laughed at me when I first started because they thought like it'll never work in Youngstown. And I just said, someone asked me, where did you get your, market verification from for the Flea? And I said, I don't need to do any market verification. I already know.
You know it's going to work.
We have everything we need. You know, we got a trained chef in here telling us that we've got everything that we need to make these fine cuisines. We just really have to whip this up the right way. And thank God the community responded. You know, I'm very
in a big
thankful
way.
In a huge way.
Yeah. How many vendors do you have now?
We boast about 75 regularly. Wow. But I will say, to your point, a lot of the work that I do, I try and share as often as I can that you have to look deeper than what you see on the surface level. Because a lot of people would see it and say, well, you just created a flea market in a parking lot. And I'm like, that's fine if that's what you see. But what I'm doing is trying to prevent the next murder.
Right.
And they don't see that correlation. And I go, do you know the root cause of a lot of the crime in our communities is because people are in despair and they believe that the only way forward for them based on the environment they've grown up in is to sell drugs. Mm-hmm. They have hustle just like I have hustle. They just don't know that it can be transferred into a more healthy, legal way to do it. And if they don't see a platform to be able to do that, then where do they turn?
Well, I think to that point and even beyond, you're providing vendors, entrepreneurs, however you want to define them, space to do that are they don't need a brick and mortar shop to do. But beyond that, you and I've only been there a few times with my wife. We love it. We just
thank you for the support.
Oh, for
Thank
sure.
you.
But what's interesting is that you're providing a community gathering place where, I may not know you, but now I've been introduced to you, and we come from different cultures. And the guy at the table over there, and he's bringing different,
Yep.
and you're bringing people together and introducing. You're introducing them to things that maybe they're not familiar with, and it's the same argument that we have. I've worked with some law enforcement in the past, and community policing is such a big thing. And some family members, were in law enforcement, and the ones who were successful were the ones that were all in the community and knew. That dude's maybe not doing the thing he's supposed to be doing, but he's not a bad
harmless.
guy.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I think you're doing the same thing where you're bringing people together that might be. We talked about music, and I want to get into that real quick,
Sure,
because we are kind of running out of time. But there may be country music, and there may be R&B music, and there may be jazz, and there may be rock, and and that brings different cultures from it. But it's all appreciators of that art.
Yeah.
And I don't need to necessarily be a country music fan to go down to the Youngstown Amphitheater
Sure.
and celebrate that. And so that's what I think is so cool.
And to be honest with
Flea.
you, I wasn't a Flea fan per se. I'm a community fan, and that's what the Flea provided. So it was a means to an end, and that's what people don't realize is I can be very methodical in how I'm executing on things. The amphitheater was another rung in the ladder to be very community focused, right? The tagline that I came up with for Raymond John Wayne Foundation has given funding for the 20-acre park area, so they have the naming rights. It's called Wayne Park. The tagline I created for Wayne Park was "Where Community Happens."
Nice.
And so for me, again, if you think surface level, then you'll just see a country concert, you'll just see a jazz concert. But I'm there trying to dispel myths, right? That we don't know how to gather and we don't know how to do it nonviolently or in a way that is healthy. And that I'm also trying to shift mentality that says for quite a long time, culturally, the way we entertain ourselves has been very limited, right? A lot of people in the African American community, what we know is, little hole in the wall bars, and we get okay with that, and it's like Cheers, right? But there are some people who just need exposed to Jazz in the Park with Jeff Green, that need exposed to Florida Georgia Line at Y Live because there was an awesome show, and then you kind of juxtapose that with what we talked about earlier with Nelly. Nelly has a song with them that was a smash hit, that Cruise song, and it's like. So if we start to cross promote and bring people down into environments and to events and into spaces that they normally wouldn't come to, then I can broaden their mentality about what they can dream about. Then we don't have to sit back and say everybody's going to the NFL or everybody's going to the NBA, that it's okay to be an artist. And that this isn't the day and age where you're going to starve at doing it. And it gives you the opportunity to really think about, like you said, what is success? Because especially living in a community like this, where it is, you don't need to make $75,000 to have a wonderful life in our communities. You can, certainly, right? But when I started the Flea, I didn't take a salary for I still haven't. It's year 5. My wife, I told you, is a teacher. So she's not making a bunch of money, and we've got 4 kids, and we live great. But that's because we've managed debt, and we've made room for our gifts and talents. My wife loves being a teacher, so she knows her identity, and she's never shifting from that. I was probably more of the shift in our relationship from when she met me, because I was still in corporate America at that time. I'm the one who's made more of an aggressive shift at a later age in my life that's probably, quote unquote, upset the balance of the family. But we were able to brace for that, knowing that, he's about to go do some things for the community. But those things have led to, had I not built the Flea, there would be no community engagement with the Amphitheater. They wouldn't know my name.
Right.
And I really just settled into who I am and got rid of everything that I'm not. And I just go hard for who I am. And people will recognize who you are. That's, again, why the Harley Davidson owner bartered with me to pull me out of AT&T. The funny thing is, and I'll be brief with this, is AT&T knew who I was before I did. When I was in corporate America, I got shifted around the company a lot. And it was very frustrating to me because, again, I was going through that divorce. I had managed in Boardman, Niles on 422, inside the Eastwood Mall in Cortland on Elm Road, Austintown, back to Southern Park Mall. And it wasn't until I left the company, and a friend of mine still works there, and she says, "You know why they moved you a lot?" And I go, "No, I have no clue. It was just every move was just the worst time ever, and I was frustrated." And she said, every store they put you in was closing, and they wanted to see if you could fix it, and you did. And when you did, then they put somebody else in there and moved you to another failing store. So they knew I was a fixer before I knew I was a fixer. And when I figured out I was a fixer, like, that's what I do. Mm-hmm. You give me something, I'm going to be like, we ain't getting rid of that till I try and fix it. You know, I remember making my kids suffer a little bit because our furnace was acting up. But I could hit a button and it would kick on. I'm like, this furnace is still good. I may not know what's wrong with it, but this furnace is still good. We're not calling a repair guy or a replacement furnace until we figure out what, I at least want to know what's faulty before we go forward. And so the Flea is my attempt. And I'm not talking about fixing people in the sense that they're broken to the point where they need me and I'm some savior. I'm just talking about I recognize issues and I can step up to the plate with my giftings and my talent, and I'm more than willing to give my time and my love to say I know the way forward if you'll just trust me. And I could go in and fix stores and like that because I'm very analytical and I see issues and I think deeply about them and how to solve them, not in a surface level way. And that's why I say I could be very methodical on how I'm trying to solve issues for our community in that same way because I'm a fixer. So that's why I encourage kids to know who you are before other people know who you are, because they'll use you for it. I got used for 12 and a half years. Now, yeah, again, they treated me well with my paycheck and benefits and that kind of thing. But had I known that you were going to move me that much, I mean, I would have negotiated at least to say, if you're going to move me 12 times in 12 years, like, we need to put the package together.
Know your value.
Know your value.
Yeah.
Brought back memories, and you said you went from that with your wife to what you're doing now. And I had the best corporate job that I had, making the most money that I had. And then I told my wife, I said, or my fiance at the time, I said, I think it's time for me to try this thing on my own. That's scary for anybody. You know what I
Scary.
mean? Like my wife's an RN, just kind of like, they're just used to that. They're following their dreams.
Yeah.
But they still get that corporate side. They still get
Yeah.
that every 2 weeks, 401k, everything else.
Well, it's a 9 to 5. It's a formula, and what you're doing is non-formulaic.
Oh,
You're a trailblazer.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But I will tell you, my wife's been hugely supportive.
You are too, Brandon.
Oh, thank you.
And
What did she say when the first time? Like, was she scared? Like, what were some of the things?
You know what? She was literally very, very supportive because she knew that I knew who I was. She's like, she didn't doubt that like this isn't like some, what we would call like a midlife crisis. She knew that I'd come into discovery of literally who I was. And she was like, I'm not going to stand in the way. You would hate my guts. Like she literally said, I would be keeping you from what you love. And she also went so far as to tell me, laying in bed one night, she goes, I'm going to try and give you advice as much as I can in the things that you're going to be doing. But this was wholly comforting to me. My wife has said to me, don't let me get you off from who you know you are just because you trust me so much as your wife.
That's awesome. And one thing that I've learned doing these podcasts is simply the importance of your significant other.
Yeah.
And because Jim, this is probably our 30th guest, and not one time has somebody sat down and said, I am the person I am, and I made the difference of who I am today because, my significant other didn't support me.
Yeah, 100%.
My wife was
It is so important to do that.
And she was the buffer that allowed me time to settle in, because again, like you talked about, we push you through things in life. We push you K to 3. We push you 4 to 6 and push you through high school and, push you through college. And it's like there's never a moment unless we intentionally take it or force it. Like, there's some institutions that have what the, gap year or you come out of high school, you take some time off. It's not encouraged in our society in most cases, but we just seem so pushed and rushed into things. Like, it's strange to me that our society like pushes on women, like when are you having a baby and getting married?
When are you getting married? I used to get that too.
So, again, Amphitheater, another opportunity to bridge the gap and I love Ween for what they've done because they've established some benchmarks for my role that really start seeing the community through a lens of diversity and inclusiveness and affordability and accessibility and equity and race. And that's my role, is to now see things through that lens to say, okay, we're hitting home runs in a lot of cases, but are we intentionally pulling in community? And there's a lot of opportunity because another thing in our society is,
bless you,
I don't believe that at any real intervals we learn intentionally how to do community. You take cues from your nice neighborhood about how you should cut your grass and where you put your car. And
some neighbors do.
Some neighbors do. So we do learn, societal cues about community, like, hey, again, culture. And the way we do things around here, son, is when you see me cutting my grass, which is when you're supposed to get your mower out and cut your grass. It's like, sweet. Or neighborhood associations that force us to do those things to stay in line with the culture of a community. But really talking about how do we do community, which is what I mean is life together. Mm-hmm. How do we do life together?
You talk about why you love Youngstown. One thing about Warren and Youngstown is that no matter what race you are, we all come from a lower income, basically. There are things that I've learned in this area, Warren, of Youngstown, that you just don't find anywhere else. I mean, you go to school with a 50-50 crowd. Yeah. I know how to handle. I know how to appreciate women. I know how to appreciate different people, different races, different skills. It's a beautiful thing in this area. There's a lot of things. When you start looking at how great this area is, that's the reason why you love this area. Not because we're on the top, we're number one in the lowest market out there to buy a home and stuff, and we got the cheapest homes. No, that's a positive.
Yeah.
You can come here, make a great living, and have a big house. You know what I mean?
We need to
for
have
a cheap price.
Yeah, we need to have more heart-to-heart conversations with our residents, and I'll tell you that. Two things that I think. I was at a event where the question was, what's the state of the valley? And everybody's asking these questions. They had somebody from the education field, somebody from the medical field, somebody from, the political realm. And one of the questions I should have asked, but I didn't, but I asked the moderator afterwards, is I said, how well do you think the Valley does the Valley? Because that's a idealistic view. Like, you pretend like the Valley's really good at being the Valley, but we're really not. Mm-hmm. We're siloed and fragmented, and there should be more connectivity, but there's not, right? The fate of Youngstown is the fate of Warren, is the fate of Canfield and Poland. Our destinies are intertwined.
Sure.
And you start seeing it, right, when you have things get exposed in some of those suburban areas that they didn't want you to know about, that crime actually happens in more places than just downtown or, Youngstown.
Right.
But my point is that there are two things that I think plague us still, and we've talked about them, culture and identity. And we still don't know our identity. And I can tell you that there are a lot of well-meaning people and a lot of well-meaning initiatives, but they're not thinking deeply enough. They're still on the surface level. And you can yell at me for this later, but when you go from the Rust Belt to Volt Valley, you don't know your identity. You don't know it.
Well, it's like it's almost like they're taking this really broad stroke and trying to rebrand in a sense that someone would try to reinvent themselves through a crash diet rather than make incremental change.
Yeah. And I don't disparage those efforts.
I don't either. Because
those are wonderful industries to get into.
I'd rather be known as Voltage Valley than I would as I hate that idea of the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
It's like,
but it's like you're trying to change the complete identity of a community and a valley when really, if you went broader and just said that our identity is entrepreneurs, and we're going to get into a bunch of different things inside of that identity, then you're fine. But to go from, Rust Belt to Voltage Valley and try and get people to buy into that identity is just like going from, again, my life could be an example of that, where people say, well, you did it. I really didn't. The work that I'm getting into maybe looks strange on the surface, but the core heart of it is the same. I love Youngstown, and I'm a fixer. That's my identity. And the work that I do comes out of that. So if this area would identify what it is and say, we're resilient, right? How did people survive the 1920s? Resilience. How did people come out of the people that stayed after the mills closed? How did they get through? Was it that's the identity that I'm talking about that we need to discover before we can layer on other things. So as I said in the beginning, if you want to know who you are, then Youngstown, Warren, the Valley needs to hold up a mirror to itself and say your name. And it's not Voltage Valley.
Yeah. Well,
it's the Valley.
Not yet, maybe. We don't
not
know.
Yet.
We don't know. We don't know what that evolution is.
And again, all I'm saying is you get to add on to your identity when you know your identity.
And that should be a component, but it shouldn't be the definitive.
Yeah,
it's just like the layers that you're adding. You talked about, Brandon brought up a good point about the affordability of home ownership or affordability of living here. And one of the things that you're giving value added to Youngstown by not only the Flea in creating this place for people to gather and for entrepreneurs to experiment with a little bit of a safety net.
Sure.
And I'm trying to wrap this up because we're getting to that hour and a half mark, and I do want to talk about these other things real quick. Because you've evolved from the Youngstown Flea now into the longest title ever.
The hoodest name we could come with.
Yeah, we got
community engagement and inclusion coordinator. Like, that dude's killing it.
And because of that, though, one of the identifiers that we have, or value-added propositions that we have, is entertainment. And so you bringing in community entertainment components gives us all, again, another place to meet and find out about each other through different cultural differences.
Self-discovery.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's
we
super
gotta
important,
get to know each
man.
other.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and that's what this is about. And again, why I talk about Ween's benchmarks of diversity and inclusion and affordability, because it's difficult to come together when, a ticket price keeps some people or some segments of our population away, or the types of entertainment. There's a ton of education that we have to do to say, who told you not to go see Blake Shelton?
Right.
Because it was a really great time. And I'm 6'3" and black, right? Who told you that you couldn't?
It's a country concert too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like country, but I went there and had a good time.
Good time, because we have to reframe what entertainment means to us and what it's about. It's about community, that I support things because I want to be around others. Who told you to come to movie night just for the movie?
Exactly.
Just for the movie, right? Rather than
exactly
spending time as a family away from your home together.
And doing something beautiful in your hometown.
Right? So we spend more time saying, well, what movie are you picking, rather than how are you going to spend time with your family and your community and introduce them to the cool things around. I take my kids to different places. When I started the Flea, I drove past the parking lot and I showed them that a dream can start with something as simple as a parking lot. Mm-hmm. Because we need to understand that, right? And we understand community in sort of one-dimensionally. Instead, I'm trying to say to you, quit worrying about which movie we're playing. We're going to put some thought into that for sure. But what if we framed it as this is family time, so that we can rebuild the structure of what family looks like and who we spend time with and what's okay. So as we talk about things for the amphitheater, there will be things like, an R&B day party in the park. We've got a local DJ, Charles Colvin, DJ Chip Banks. He's doing a day party in the park with R&B. Who's invited? Everyone. It's going to be a public event, right? Showing a local filmmaker like Kawhi Daniels. He's got a double feature that we're going to do with Body Bag and The Refractor. Local, homegrown filmmaker that everybody should know of. He shouldn't have to go to another community to debut his films when he's from Youngstown. And we want to make that happen. We want to make these spaces open and inclusive. And we want all ages. The season opener, last year when we did the first look, that was a smash hit for us. We believe we're going to pull that back in and do it again with GOC and the Storm. So you got funk. We've got jazz that we're trying to bring to the park with Jeff Green. The parties on the plaza, Phelps is getting some construction because pedestrian only is the plan for there. And so moving party on the plaza into that space. We plan on a wedding in the park. We've got picnics with local organizations, food truck rallies, all types of things that we want to try and do. Because quite honestly, if you look at the spaces too, I mean, how many places can you go where right in one corridor you have a major convention center, 20 acres of green space, and an $8 million amphitheater that was just built, and a bridge with a service road underneath it where we can party in the alley. Mm-hmm. And we have some very cool, unique amenities in this community, engaging the arts community to do different things in the space. Looking at holidays like 4th of July and really pulling in things that'll keep people downtown a lot longer. It's limitless for us.
So prodders out there, if you're in the area, Northeast Ohio, but if you're out of the area and you're traveling, coming up here shortly on April the 18th will be the first Youngstown Flea.
Season 5.
Come to that parking lot with 75 vendors and check out some really cool stuff like soap makers and food trucks and artists and all this great stuff.
We do yoga, pet friendly, live music. I mean, and funny because somebody went on Google and left a review that said wonderful but small. And so again, another education opportunity where I said to someone, what's small? Small is in comparison to.
Right.
And why are you comparing us?
Yeah.
Right. And 75, if you come and engage, right? If you come power walk through it,
right,
for sure, 75 can seem small. But if you come and engage and inquire and enlighten yourself to, hey, how did you make that? Or what caused you to start this business with this product? Right? That local maker spent hours and months and days and weeks creating a product for you to enjoy, and they want to tell you all about it. So, this was meant to be something that gathers us for a while.
And I'm sure it's growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So come on out to the Youngstown Flea. And then shortly thereafter here at the precipice of summer, May 30th is the opening of the Amphitheater. You've already mentioned Quai Daniels. Shout out Quai, local filmmaker who's going to do some movies down there. And then you've got some bigger acts too, like the Steve Miller Band's coming, and the Beach Boys, and the Tedeschi Trucks band from Jacksonville. So there's all kind of different stuff that's happening.
And more is going to be announced too. You know, there's still some offers out there on the table that we can't talk about, but we want to make it as we talked about, diverse and inclusive.
Well, give us some bookkeeping stuff too. Where can listeners go to find out more about not only Youngstown Flea, but also what's happened at the Amphitheater and the stuff that you're doing? Some websites and Facebook pages?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything for the Flea is at Youngstown Flea, F-L-E-A. So youngstownflea.com. On any social media, it's the same, at Youngstown Flea. So if you're on Instagram, that's our handle, on Twitter, Facebook, all of that. And we do have a text, service that can alert you to different activities for the Flea.
That's cool. How do you do that? How do you
can go right on the website or on the Facebook page and text the word Youngstown Flea to the short code 24587. So, can sign up and we'll text you. We don't text a lot. I'm busy. I actually handle that service myself. So usually it's once a month that I'll alert you to the activities that are happening for the Flea. But with the Amphitheater and those events that are going to happen, and when we talk about Ween Park, that's all encompassing. That includes the green space, the bridge with Huntington Bank Community Alley, the Youngstown Foundation Amphitheater, and what's happening at Covelli Center. Certainly, each of those entities has a website, and you can sign up for newsletters. They have marketing information if you've ever bought tickets through it. So, CovelliCenter.com. YF Amphitheater, that stands for Youngstown Foundation Amphitheater, so YFAmphitheater.com. And if you have any trouble with those things, certainly reach out to me. I'm accessible. I literally have my direct cell phone number on my webpage, so for the Flea or anywhere you find me, that's my direct number. And I've never shied away from that because I want to have conversations with people. We make it pretty simple to know. But it can be with as much that goes on in these spaces, difficult to keep up with it. So sign up for the newsletters. I know emails get bogged down and those kind of things, but when they announce pre-sales on concerts and those kind of things, that's really the only way. We're looking at some cool, unique ways to, do some geofencing. And actually, one of the ideas I came up with is we're going to put some smaller community billboards on each side of town to let people know right in their own neighborhoods what's going on in the community. We're going to change those out because, again, we consume information differently. There might be some older segments of the community that say we would have supported that had we known about it. So number of different ways. If you're into technology, certainly go to the social media pages and all the announcements are there, or the web pages. But we're going to do billboards, we're going to do radio, TV, all that good stuff this year.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming and having a conversation with us today.
You could probably cut like the first couple minutes.
We're going to keep it rolling, man.
And then it'll shorten this whole thing.
No, we're going to keep it rolling.
I should have warned you guys.
It was interesting. Well, I was already warned. I actually, I reached out to Eric Ryan yesterday or the day before, and I said, hey, man, Derrick McDowell's coming on, and any tidbits.
Like, dude can talk.
That's it. He said, I said, anything that, he goes, dude's an awesome dude, and you're not going to have any problem with content because he's a talker.
We spoke, 40 minutes before this? I finally said, guys, let's just get the microphone.
Let's just turn it on.
So, Derrick, thank you so much for coming out today. Totally appreciate
honored,
you
man.
sharing your story. You're most welcome, and I look forward to checking out the Amphitheater. I've not been there yet, so I'm going to check it out this season.
Yeah, let's come do community together, man.
For sure, and definitely... can't wait to check out the Youngstown Flea with some warmer weather on the horizon.
Yeah, thank you guys
for coming to get electrified with us.
Yeah, electrified.
Listen, until the next time, listeners, lovers, and friends, stay electrified and keep on prodding. Please like, listen, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And check us out at theprodcast.net. Until the next time, peace and be well. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, thank you for listening to episode 29 with Derrick McDowell. That was part 2 of the Youngstown twofer. We want to, of course, thank Coates Car Care, our big sponsor for season 2. We want to mention, of course, as always, Brandon's MDI Studios that takes care of our website, theprodcast.net, where if you visit, you can sign up once you subscribe to our show and be eligible to receive Coates Car Care car wash giveaways. We'll mail them to you. Man, that's cool. And of course, Two Ticks and the Dog Productions up above Dave Grohl Alley in downtown Warren, Ohio, where right down the road is Modern Methods Brewery. And in the next few weeks, we will be having owner and brewer Adam Keck on our show as a guest to talk about not only the amazing beer flavors that they have right now, like Darlene and like Dub City IPA and like Sweet Fart. Yes, there's actually a beer called Sweet Fart. I'm telling you, it's delicious. But he's going to be talking about Panther Town. Ooh, I love the name. I even love the artwork. And we're going to be talking more about that coming up. So stay tuned. Remember, stay electrified and be kind in this time of COVID-19. We're all going to get through this together. Remember, as our state and as our country opens back up, like we mentioned earlier, we may not all be in the same boat, but we are all in the same storm together. Wear your face mask, wash your hands, clean and sanitize your business, limit your capacity, and keep up those social distancing guidelines. I got to run because I got to reset the studio for our guests next week so that we can maintain our own social distancing guidelines when we start to continue bringing you new content and record new content for the podcast. Until the next time, love each other and stay electrified. Peace.